This woman don't want to let a little girl sell some water. She calling police on an 8-year-old little girl. You can hide all you want. The whole world gonna see you, boo.
Yeah, and illegally selling water without a permit? Yeah.
On my property.
It's not your property.
I hear you have a problem with these gentlemen having a barbecue here at the lake. What's going on?
Now she don't want to talk.
She doesn't want to talk now.
It's illegal to have a charcoal grill in the park here.
No, it's not actually. I just looked at the map.
Is.
It says this is a designated barbecue area.
No, not for a charcoal grill. No charcoal grills are allowed. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I gotta try and get me a
Not for a charcoal grill. No charcoal grills are allowed.
You're scared.
Please leave me alone.
You're white.
African American.
Illegally selling water without a permit?
But with cell phone cameras and social media, calling 911 on your black or brown neighbors just isn't what it used to be. Hi, I'm Niecy Nash, actress, inventor, and advocate for not calling 911 on black people for no goddamn reason. I'd like to introduce you to a radical new product that will save you all the headaches of being filmed and outed as a racist douche. It's called 1-844-WHITE-FEAR, and it's revolutionizing the way racist white people cope with black people living life near them.
1-844-WHITE-FEAR. There's a black guy outside my neighbor's house, and he's walking around.
Our experienced staff have been living while black in America their entire lives. Darren here is a former Obama aide who had the cops called on him for moving into his new apartment.
Yes, that is actually your neighbor Michael. Yeah, no problem.
Our records are actually showing that's actually his boat. Yeah, I know, black people have boats too now.
Studies show that people of color are more likely to be arrested, convicted, and serve longer sentences than white people for similar crimes. So calling 911 for non-emergency situations is really just a move.
I got so scared when I saw a black guy walking around outside, and so I called 1-844-WHITE-FEAR, and it turns out we're neighbors, and I'm a racist.
Now, black people have been helping white people be better since always.
So, she's looking around and standing there?
A regular frisbee or ultimate frisbee?
Call it when black people are having a barbecue, taking a nap in a rec room, mowing the lawn, waiting for a friend at a coffee shop, golfing, shopping, enjoying a vacation at their Airbnb, going to work, coming home from work, working while at work, campaigning for office, swimming with socks on, delivering newspapers, buying a house, selling water, parking their car, using a coupon, and so much more. 1-844-WHITE-FEAR. It's a real number for real white people who should mind their own damn business.
What's going on here?
If you've been a victim of 911 harassment, please email us at 844-WITE-FEAR@nytimes.com.
Real. You're gonna want that. Real. Yeah. You're gonna need it. You're gonna want that. Real. Yeah. And think about what you're doing. You better stop and think about what you're doing. You better stop.
Hi, I'm April Audane. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm a healthcare finance professional.
My name is PJ Allen, and I live in Chicago, and I teach digital arts to high schoolers and middle schoolers.
Good afternoon. I'm Demetrius Jordan, near the suburb of Chicago, Illinois. I'm a high school educator and college professor. I also do consulting work with on professional business and communication and marketing.
My name is Miche Ragland. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. I work in research and development. I'm a regulatory affairs specialist, and basically I keep your cosmetics and personal care products safe.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Goforth. I'm from Chicago. I'm a real estate agent, a mom, and I also work in the field service operations.
Gone in a different direction, but I think it's good. But like the one thing I wanted to throw in, and it's not even a question, but just as a point to maybe discuss, is the reality of the situation is in terms of kind of the racial climate. There are people who benefit from racism. Like everyone talks about racism like it's this disease, and it is a disease. But the reality is, some people benefit from racism.
Yes.
Someone like, and I don't mean to get political, but Donald Trump benefited from racism until the Department of Justice shut him down in the 70s for housing discrimination.
Slumlords.
And there are more and more people like that. Like, yes, racism is a disease, but racism is a disease that benefits a lot of people.
Super important point, right? You know, this isn't for nothing, right? Like, white people maintain a lot of wealth, you know, which buys, you know, is part of the privilege, right?
Yeah. And I think that all, you know, even though we kind of have gone 360 with the Karens, but I think it all kind of ties in together, because it's like, how did we get to this point? How do we get to the point where some white women, some white men feel the need to call us out when every little single thing we do for basically existing and living? And why is that? Like I said, these things just didn't happen overnight. They just didn't pop up in 2020 where people have cell phones and are like, oh, wow, this person's acting like a Karen or a Kyle, treating me some type of way or questioning my existence to be here. This has been going on forever, right? Yes. Where you're questioning about why you're here, how did you get here? You know, I have people that question my friends that have advanced degrees. How did you get that? Well, how did you get yours? What? You
mean they're not giving those away?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
oh, it was an athletic scholarship.
Like
it had to be an athletic scholarship.
Right. Just questioning people about just their existence. And this is not new. Like you know, a couple of you were saying there's phones now. There's younger people out here that are like, you know, what's going on, you know, and they're videotaping this, and, you know, it's on social media, and we have the pandemic, everybody's at home. So you're seeing a lot more of this, but it's not new. It's been going on. You know, we've all experienced it, especially as folks of color, and even BJ, even other white women have talked about Karens. Like, I see whole threads on Twitter with, you know, white ladies throwing other white ladies under the bus, saying, hey,
we're good at that.
Gotta stop, you know?
On the Christopher Columbus thing, here's the part that, and here's where, as people of any color, any ethnicity, we have to understand kind of the bigger picture. There is a sect of Italians who are quite happy with Christopher Columbus not being recognized. I have friends who are Italian who have a problem with the fact that he purposely changed his name to be non-Italian. Because his name is Christopher Columbi. It's Columbi. It is not Columbus. They would much rather see a statue to Enrico Fermi, a statue to Americus Vespucci. If they were going to honor Italians, they say they are Italians who look and sound Italian. And when I hear that argument, I say, I've heard black folks say that same argument. I've heard Latinx people make that same argument. Oh, we being fooled and given because those who are profiting off of this racism, profiting off of this fight, want to keep this going. But the real story is that there are Italian Americans who are not happy with the fact that there's an Italian American who was a murderer, who was a mass rapist, who brought genocide. They'd much rather honor someone else. But you'll have a Trump or someone like that who will mention it like that, who has no Italian roots, who has no tie to Italy, has no tie to that culture and that background, other than the fact that he probably goes to an Italian steakhouse once a month. He has no tie to that, but he wants to speak up on that. But we have to look past what we're seeing and what they're showing us and find what's real.
I'm sorry, April, go ahead. I know together.
But to your point, Demetrius, you know, I think part of it too is that if they keep each of the different segments of the people of color like kind of bickering about the little stuff, if we could just put that out on the table and say, no, this is not, it's little stuff that we're arguing about. Because if we really came together, you know, we would not be able to be defeated. And they know that. So they, every time you think, oh, this has been squashed, they're like, hold up, let me light that fire again. Because they understand if we all were to come together, it would be absolute pandemonium for them. For real.
It'd be a problem. Exactly.
Well, that's why
That's
that's why they say MLK was killed, not because, you know, protesting things, because his next campaign was the Poor People's Campaign, right before he got shot.
Absolutely.
And Reverend Barber down in North Carolina is continuing the Poor People's Campaign. And what Martin Luther King was trying to do was bring everybody together, poor, working class, whites, blacks, browns, everybody, because he said we are stronger together and we all have the same fight. And we do. We all have the same fight.
Too. When
Yeah, we all have the same fight, and this divisiveness, you know, I tell my, you know, my white female friends, we got to stick together because women need to be together on things. We do not need to be separated and have division between us. All the different communities, the LGBT community, Native Americans, Hispanics, they need to be right there with us. The other day I saw 2 militias in Louisville. The white militia should have been standing over there with the black militia. If they was really about that life, about don't tread on me, government overreach, police doing things they shouldn't be doing. If they was really about that life, they should have stepped over and been on the side with the black militia. Because we're fighting for the same things. To be treated fair, to be treated equally, to not have government overstep. You know, to have our rights for freedom. And if everybody stuck together, this country would be unstoppable. But that's what they don't want. That's what they don't want. And a lot of people in power, they benefit from that divisiveness. And then people who are scared of losing their privilege. But like I said, we don't want nothing from the Karens of the world. We don't want nothing from the Kyles of the world. We just want to be treated fairly and just. We want to have the same opportunities. If we get stopped by the police, we don't want to end up dead, just like you don't end up dead. You know? We want the same opportunities, and that is it. There's nothing about trying to take over the country, take power from one group or another. We are over 100 and some years behind the wealth gap from our white counterparts. And by the time we catch up, we'll still be behind again. So there's no way that we're trying to take over anything. Well, do we want to accomplish things? Do we want to achieve things? Of course, just like anybody else. But I don't understand this you know, these microaggressions that we get from people, or the Karens and Kyles of the world who want to question our full existence and why we're somewhere or why we're doing something. Because I'm like, you must have like the best life where you can question everything that someone else is doing, or worrying about the job that someone else is doing if you work with them. You know, it's like my mother told me, if you're so busy looking at what I'm doing, how are you doing your work?
Exactly.
How are you living your life? If you're so busy worried about what I'm doing. You know? So we just need to get it together. People need to come to terms that the country is changing, the world is changing, and we need to work together. We need to work together to make this a better place for everyone. It's way past time. And I think, you know, as far as Gen X, I got to take up for Gen X because we've been out here. We've been out here. I don't know about other Gen Xers, but let me tell you, I had African American history class in 9th grade, and I've been woke since 9th grade. I've been okay with myself as a black woman. I've been okay with my full lips and hips. I've been okay. I'm a natural. I just blew my hair out. I'm okay with my hair as is. And I have been representing since I could. I was at Occupy Wall Street. I've been at, marches in Washington. Me, my family, my friends, we've been out here. And I always let that be known because people act like Generation X is doing nothing. We've been out.
What?
We've been out here.
What? People say that about Gen X? Oh my God. All right.
Gen X in the building right now. I see.
All right. Sorry.
And we still out here. I'll be in DC in August. If y'all want to join me and my family, we'll be marching in August in DC. So.
Is this your property? Hi, I'm asking you if this is your property.
Why are you asking?
Because it's private property.
Because it's private property,
So,
sir.
are you defacing private property, or is this your building? You're free to express your opinions, but not on people's property.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Just respectfully.
Sure.
So we're just saying, absolutely, your signs and everything, and that's good. This is not the way to do it.
Okay.
It's private property.
But if I did live here and it was my property, this would be absolutely fine. And you don't know if I live here or if this is my property.
We actually do know. That's why we're asking.
Oh, really? Because you live here, right? You
No,
said so.
because we know the person who does live here.
Oh, okay.
So
Then
that's all
I suggest you call him or call the police, or because you're accusing me of a crime, correct?
What I'm asking you is why are you
And I'm
doing
not
this?
answering you.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So your choices are to call the cops if you believe I'm calling a crime, and I will more than be happy to talk to him.
Okay, thank you.
What's your name again?
I'm Lisa.
Lisa, what's your last name?
What is your name?
What's your name? I asked first, Lisa. What's your name, sir? What's your last name, sir?
What is your first name, sir?
I'm not answering. I'm not talking to you. You're talking to me. I'm asking you the questions.
Well, we're not doing anything illegal.
Neither am I.
Actually, you are. Actually.
Really? Oh, okay. Well, then call the cops.
We will do.
Lisa and Robert.
Yeah.
I'll be right here.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. And that, people, is why Black Lives Matter. That's Karen, and she's calling the cops. And this is going to be really funny. Because she knows the people who live here. Personally.
Come on, bro. Watch out.
We pay rent here. This is paying rent.
What'd you say we can't do?
I'm Tom Austin. I'm a tenant in the building. Are you?
We're all tenants in this building.
What office?
Don't worry about that. We're not explaining.
What office?
So we have an office here, and this guy came accusing us we can't be here.
What office are you in?
Don't worry about that. We don't have to tell you
I'm calling
anything.
911 then.
Go ahead. As you guys can see, we're dealing with racism here.
Nicole? Hey, this is Tom Austin. I'm in the gym at the Mosaic. There's the whole, I don't know what to do here, but there's a whole bunch of people who don't appear to be part of the...
Y'all see this racism?
Well, look.
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tiffany. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's a short segue and it's a question. So, are we agreeing that Kyle is the corresponding term for male?
See, I thought it was Ken.
I've heard Ken.
Yeah,
I've heard
Ken,
Chad.
Kyle.
I was going to
Chad.
ask, what does the
Chad.
male equivalent? But they're not called out as much, right? And I was wondering why.
They're usually in the background of the Karen.
That was my next
caught up with her.
But see, that's the thing, and I'm glad we actually brought, because this is where we were going to go with the conversation. I'm just thinking in terms of what recently happened with AOC. Now, I love AOC, and I think she's great for the country. And I think what happened to her is just another example of kind of male supremacy in this country. And just, I can talk about a woman any way I want. It just rides. Is identifying and calling out Karening and not doing it for males who may be doing the same thing. Is that in and of itself sexist or misogynist? Like, is this a double standard? If a white man does this, is he criticized in the same way?
Well, let me ask you this: look at the leader of the free world before he got elected, and we heard recordings of him grabbing women by their privates. He still got elected. Of course, it's a double standard. Of course, it is. And I'll just say that. Go ahead, April, because I'll run with this all day long.
Well, I was gonna say, Tiffany, too, is like they also do it in the circle of friends. They have these conversations. Yeah, I know y'all be having these conversations in the circle of friends. You know, women, we're supposedly emotional beings, and we have these act out these fits. And I say that the Kens are in the backgrounds of the Karen because even like in the San Francisco case, it was the woman who was doing all the speaking and the guy was just backing her up. He was like in the background, like, okay, well, this is my wife. Let me, do what I need to do.
Right.
But they usually do it in the confines, or they do it when it's a one-on-one situation. And who are you going to believe? her or me. The difference with AOC is she was like, oh, I'm not going to let you slide with this. Good for her. Because how many times as women have we been called aggressive, where the same thing for a guy, he's been a leader, a boss, he's dominant, whatever. We get called out for all the same traits that make men absolute leaders, innovators, and all these other things. And so when they feel like we have overstepped our bounds, then that's when we get called out for those same sorts of characteristics. So I think it's funny that he wants to call her the B word or whatever, and it's just like, oh, but what are you doing by calling me that? You doing the same thing.
Here's from a guy standpoint, and you all are all exactly right. Cowards run the world at this point. Because I come from the men in my family and an older generation who will be quite honest and tell you, how dare you, it's sexist, but how dare you speak to a woman that way?
Yeah.
She's a woman. You don't speak to her that way. And so some of this where we don't see the guys, you see the Kyles in the background, is because socialized, men, we are socialized that confrontation between men become physical. From the time we're 4 or 5 years old, we're taught that's how men handle things.
Yeah.
Little boys fight. So Karens come out and they want to start speaking, and they get aggressive, and they're asserting themselves, and the white tears and all of that. And you see the Kyle kind of in the background, or the lady who got out of a car with the gun in Michigan, and the husband stayed inside the car in the background. Because at the end of the day, we've been socialized for so long that as a man, once you step up to the plate, let's go. This is gonna happen. So it becomes real easy to man up against a woman, or man up against the AOC, or you see some of these men approaching women, and I've seen, my wife been approached by men in the grocery stores in situations where men, we were in separate cars, and this guy just got real aggressive with her how he was parking. And I was literally about 3 minutes away. She got on the phone. She said, "You need to come by." And the tenor changed when 6'4", 300 pounds of me stepped out of the car.
Right.
Yeah. This is what you want to do. It's set. We man it up. Let's man up.
I got smoke for sale. You can
man, what you need to understand is not me to be scared of. It's her. She gonna be quicker to go. But you looking and you realizing and take it back to hip hop, analyzing my size and your size, and realizing a fist fight will be asinine. This is not so. But what happens is these men, they become cowardly. And you're right. They get in these circles of other cowards, and there's not a real man in the midst to say that ain't cool, that ain't hot. I don't. The guy who's been elected president and who sits there, who made those statements about grabbing women by the private parts. As another dude in that room, I've been in the locker room we talk stuff as guys, but I'm like, hey, dude, so you saying you grab them and they don't want you to? You know that's rape, dog, right? That's if you did that to my daughter or my sister, I'm going to kill you. We'll move on. Right. Next conversation. But the problem is that cowards have ascended to run the world as we become a society that does not allow as much physical and confrontations. And I understand that there's some positives to that we're not determined strictly by our physical prowess as men and moving up. But in doing that, we've allowed some men to assume positions of power that 40, 50 years ago, they never would have been in. They never would have been allowed to do that.
I don't know. I would say white supremacy really is basically being a coward, and it's been going on for a long time.
But see, the white supremacists, they come together to support each other because they are outside of that. If you look at two powerful white men in this country, the same age, Robert Mueller and Donald Trump, same age, same backwards, come the same way. Robert Mueller served in the military. Robert Mueller was in law enforcement for real. By anyone you talk to about him and his background, what he does, he's what you would call a man's man. John McCain, who passed on, white male, same age group, same area, same time, has some questionable things in his background about the way he treats women. but would never be one who would be accused of calling a woman a B on the steps of Capitol Hill. That wouldn't happen. Would never be on tape talking about grabbing a bottle or whatever. That wouldn't happen. So that, but the problem is that that generation of men has allowed men of less, and again, this sounds very sexist, and I understand that. Some of it I'll stand on. I have a 19-year-old daughter who will gladly, when this is over, tell me how sexist I sound. But there was, if nothing else, there was a point in there where as men acted like men and didn't do those things. That stuff just wasn't allowed. And while in doing that, it put women as an underclass. That's kind of the aftermath of that, and that part is wrong, and that needs to change. Acknowledge that. Yet at the same time, men need to start manning up again. And that guy who called out AOC on the steps and then lied about it, I'd have had more respect for him if he'd have said, "Yeah, I was mad. I said it. I shouldn't have. I did. I said it." Instead, he went and lied about it. The men that I know,
and
I'm around.
I don't mean to cut you off, Demetrius. I apologize.
Kevin,
but
you know,
we cut each other off all the time.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Go ahead.
But he's not sorry. He got up in front of the representatives and said, "I'm sorry she heard me say that, but I won't apologize for loving my country." She was somehow conflating being vile and vulgar and disrespectful and misogynist and racist to loving that's sleight of hand. That's a trickery. That's not real.
Because he lives in a world, in a bubble, that he can get away with that.
Right.
But I want to ask you a question. I want to ask Kevin and Demetrius. I want to ask you.
Now, see, April already, she's been a casting agent.
I just have a question because y'all are talking about this. But how much of it is because there's a perception that women of color are single by choice? They're not married, so therefore they don't have defenders, or they're single parents, versus the perception of the nuclear white family? Because had AOC been a married woman, would he have stepped to her like that? If she had a big family of brothers and people that they knew, would he have stepped to her like that? I think that there's this sense that women of color do not have protection, because I know that, I can't speak to everybody's family, but I know if some man steps to me, I have people who can step to him too. And I think he stepped to her because he thought nobody's going to say anything to me.
Right.
And that's what happened with my wife. It's the same kind of thing. It was a funny thing. And it was obvious to me, because part of the story was that her wedding ring was at the jewelry shop being cleaned.
See?
So you're definitely on point. There's an assumption that she's a single black woman and she's out here and she's by herself, and therefore I can dominate over her and assert my dominance. So you're exactly right with that. The part that came back, and the part I think I'll speak to me and Kevin, that we didn't have the role to play, is that we have to. Again, I'm not there to defend the woman, because my belief is that, again, that's where the smoke coming from. She can take care of herself. I'm there to make sure you understand you will respect her. You will respect her for what she is and let her do what she's doing. Because I'm not going to do anything but hold you down and let her do, because that's what the smoke coming from there. I have no doubt about it. She called me. That was the smart thing to do, because the thing she could have done we'd have been on one of the memes on Facebook. I'm just saying, she'd have reached in the backseat of the car. It'd have been a whole different story.
Right.
And I think also, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Demetrius. I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, I think getting back to the Kyles and Kens and Chads of the world and the AOC incident, like I said, I do see a lot more accountability in putting men out that do the same thing that some of the Karens do. I see that more on Twitter. I don't see it a lot on Facebook, of course not on Instagram, but on Twitter they do call them out. They do hold them just as accountable as the Karens, and they do put their videos up, like the tech CEO who was at the gym and told the 3 black guys, they didn't belong there. Let me see your passes. He was fired. There was another guy who did the same thing in an apartment complex. you know, wanted the black guy to show him his key and what apartment number he lived in. He was asked to leave the premises, you know, to no longer live in that apartment building. So it does happen with the men as well. I just don't think we see as much of it as with women. And I think it's because women in general, you know, we're usually the ones out running the errands more. We're usually the ones at the grocery stores. We have more interactions with people. Except for in my case, my husband does most of the shopping because I don't like the grocery store. And I'm asthmatic, and you know, COVID's out there, so he's really been doing more of the grocery shopping now. But I think we're just more out there in those situations as women, to where you're going to see more white women having these confrontations with, you know, black and brown people than you will white men. You know, and white men, it's usually more about about authority, you know, power and authority, trying to, you know, say, hey, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. You know, how could you possibly, you know, afford to be here? And things like that. Now, going back to the AOC incident, you know, I'm very glad that she stood up for herself, because I think that all women should stand up for themselves, whether you have someone to come to bat for you or not, because a lot of us, you know, are from single parent households. A lot of us may not have brothers or uncles, cousins, whatever, to come, you know, champion our cause. So I was taught from a very young age, you know, that you have to stand up for yourself. You cannot let people call you out of your name. You cannot let people, you know, talk about you in certain ways and not stick up for yourself. And I think that all women in general need to do more of that. We need to be empowered ourselves. You know, like my husband sometimes will say, why didn't you come get me? That's what I'm here for. And I'm like, I got this. Don't worry about it. You know, but if I needed to, it's good to know that I can go get him, because he's a big dude and can, you know, handle himself, where I don't have to fight that battle myself. But we should be able to call people out if they're being disrespectful, if they call us out of their name. And another thing that's been floating around the internet, I don't know if any of you guys have seen it, is black men treat black women as white people treat black people. I don't know if any of you have seen that.
I haven't seen that.
I've had this big discussion with my younger cousin, because I think the treatment of not just black men and towards black women, but men and women in general, is something that, again, is learned behavior. You know, where are people getting the idea that it's okay to speak to a woman a certain way, or call her out of her name, or approach her in a disrespectful way? You know, these are things that are learned, you know. And I also told my younger cousin, because I was like, don't confuse the two. You cannot compare how black women are treated by black men with white supremacy and slavery and the atrocities committed. They are both wrong, both bad. Both, you know, we need to do some work on as a people, right? But I think they're two totally different fights to have.
Two different phenomena.
Yeah, and it takes and I said, just like with, you know, racism, you don't just become racist overnight. This is something that's learned. The way you treat women, the way you approach women, is also learned behavior. And why do women feel it's acceptable? You know, because you see black women especially
crap out of us if we said it wasn't, you know.
Yeah. So you get that too, like where you're just told to laugh it off or brush it off, or just, you know, pretend like they didn't say or do something. Where I think we have to really start speaking up for ourselves and holding everyone accountable. Hold ourselves accountable if we've ever laughed off things or brushed it off or just took it and said, oh, you know, that's just a guy being a guy. No, I learned at a very young age, you know, I was raised by two very strong women. Do not let people approach you a certain way. Don't let them speak to you a certain way. Don't let no man call you out of your name. You know, stand up for yourself. And it's the same with women. And I told my younger cousin who posted that, I said, I've also been called names by other women. And I've heard other women drag other women down. So there's this whole issue when it comes to, you know, the Kens and Kyles of the world, and how, you know, the congressman approached AOC. There's a whole issue about learned behavior, how we're taught to accept things as women, how we're taught to brush things off as women, and also how men are brought up to treat women or deal with women, right? Yeah. So I think it's a bigger conversation to have when you talk about how men approach women in general. and also about how, you know, the Cows and Kens of the world approach people, which is, I think, more of a power trip, more of a thing of, you know, I belong here, you don't. So this is a big, you know, conversation to have, but we definitely need to work on that in the Black community. And BJ, I've talked to some of my white female friends, and you think as a Black woman or, you know, a person of color, oh, it probably happens to us more. I know from the time I was 12, you know, I was hit on, I was approached, you know, I was called names or whatever. But then I talked to my white counterparts and we share some stories, and they also have some of the same stories about creepy uncles, about young boys trying to pull their pants down in front of them or talk to them crazy. So I think it's a thing that's just not, you know, Black and brown, that goes across the board with women in general, how we're treated, how we're approached, how we're spoken to. And that is learned behavior on both sides, what we are taught to accept as women and what young men are taught growing up and what they see, whether it's at their house, whether it's with their little friends or whatever. And I think it's a bigger conversation that needs to be had about what is acceptable and what we need to do as women and men to turn this around.